Renfro, yeah.
Oh, thank you for his word.
So, yeah, he was supposed to come earlier, so.
All right, we're gonna get started. Gotta have that. So, GraceBibleNY.org Saturday-seminars, for those who need to download it. Wasn't sure I was gonna get this figured out. I had the wrong computer and everything else. Let's pray. We've got a lot to go through. We'll try and make sure that everything, if you got questions, we'll stop and take your questions. We want to make it as relevant to you and your situation as possible. A lot of this material is for a little older than where I think most of your children are. You have the oldest, right?
3.5?
Yeah, that's the oldest. So you're just getting into a lot of stuff we're talking about. But I'm going to go through a lot of this because it's something you've got to keep in mind. You want to be ahead of your child, not behind. And most often as parents, we're kind of behind. We just figured out this stage, but they're no longer in that stage. They're already over here. We want to be beyond them and thinking how we're going to be developing them as they enter in the next stage. So we'll try and cover everything, but we'll try and make it as relevant as possible to the children you have, your age group. Let's pray. Thank you, Father, for a beautiful day, and we thank you for being able to come here this morning and talk about parenting our children. Our desire is to see our children grow in your nurture and admonition, to grow up to be responsible adults that will be a blessing to society. Father, I thank you for those that have gone before us in generations previous, to understand your word, to apply these things, that we're really standing on their shoulders of the wisdom that you have given them that now benefits us. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Almost everything I do today has its root in Growing Kids God's Way, which is for Gary and Anne-Marie Ezzo, Growing Families International. At the end of your material, there's recommended parenting resources. And if you go to growingfamiliesusa.com, most of their stuff is now available to be streamed for free. And a lot of their material, you can actually download a PDF or something from it as well. So a lot of the stuff just traces back to that. They have a lot of extra material. So it is a good resource. There's also some other places there, good places for family development. Resources. Doorpost is very good. A lot of different practical things as you train your children, and they like Proverbs. There's these things about Proverbs and teaching your children those. And then there's a lot of good books. A lot of you have toddlers. Creative Family Times is very good in thinking through some activities for your children that will teach them not only skills, but more importantly, it's trying to train their heart. Okay? So we'll start with Chapter 10, Discipline with Encouragement, that actually matches the Growing Kids God's Way material. And so you can go to that. Everything starts with instruction. Number one, if you do not verbally instruct your children, how will your child ever know what is expected? They got to know what you want. Because if they don't, and then you're upset with them, that's the parent's fault. The child has to know what you expect from them. Two, if you do not live to the standard of your own instruction, how much can it really mean to you? So we set the standard, we teach the standard, we live the standard. Remember, your children, like everybody else, is more taught than taught. They're watching you. They're observing you. And if you're saying one thing but doing the opposite yourself, children very early figure out the hypocrisy. They will follow your example. So you need to live the same standard. That's what's going to affect them. B, what is required to help children internalize values? Well, first is moral knowledge. So they have to have an understanding of what's expected, not only by us, but from us, what God expects too. What are the standards God wants from them? Until they understand God's commands and the application of those commands, they're really kind of off on their own. If we never teach them, they will never know. There's some things that are internal that God places there. But a lot of the other stuff is we are helping them understand the exact application. Thou shalt not steal. Children innately know you should not take from me. They don't necessarily know that I should not take from you. So there's the problem. We're going to help them learn those things. So it's really learning, helping them understand and apply the principle of righteousness to a very broad aspect of human behavior, all the different situations we run into life. And again, to parental example, they need to see how to implement these things in their own lives, what's expected, how to do things, and then your consistency reinforces the lessons you're teaching them. Okay? If you're hypocritical in it, it negates what you're doing. Even simple things like table manners. If your table manners are not good yourself, how will you expect them to have good table manners? They're going to mimic you. Okay? C, parents need to separate moral behavior from non-moral behavior. Because not all activities of your child are moral in nature. We're looking for behavior that reflects the heart. There's a lot of things that are going to be related to skills, not necessarily moral. It may have a moral component, but we're looking for eventually to train the heart as well as help them develop skills that are non-moral. Now, there's a chart there that looks something like that. We're going to be filling in this chart. So the reference letter and number refers to what's on this chart. Okay, so keep that chart in front of you. Okay, the first one there, S1, that's the top left corner. That's skills. Skills, talents, giftedness. So it's a flow chart. So instruction, notice at the far left, you instruct in skills, talents, and as well as instruct in behavior. We're going to be doing both. So we're going to start with skills. Okay, skills are basic human nature. They're things that we learn of how to behave. Everything from how to eat. A lot of you have young ones, or you've been through that. You've taught them how to eat, right? And now they can use a cup and not spill it all over the place. Even graduating out of a sippy cup with some trepidation. But they're learning a skill. That's a skill. Learning to ride a bike is a skill. That's throwing a ball, things like that. Then there are natural talents. We would say these are gifts from God. They just have an ability that enables them to do some things that others maybe can't. Like we hear some people, they have an ear for music. They can hear things others can't, and so they're attracted to that, and they develop skills in an area of a talent. They're musically inclined. They think that way. My youngest one is very mechanically inclined. From the earliest, he could see arrangements and how things were portioned, and he figured mechanics out. That's a natural talent. Giftedness, we would say, is a magnified talent. And a lot of people can become skilled musicians, but let's face it, Mozart, he was gifted. You know, these child prodigies, they sit down and they're 4 or 5 years old and they're playing these masterpieces on the piano. I can't even get my fingers to do that. And okay, there is just magnified talent. So all three are things that your child may have, may not be into the giftedness section, but could. And these are things you're going to want to develop in them. You want to develop skills, you want to develop whatever talents they have. And we're going to start with that with encouragement. It's always encouragement, we start with that. But first, verbal praise. We can help them by telling them that they're doing very well. We want to link the words that we say with the action that they're doing so they understand, you know, you did a good job, this is wonderful. You know, as they get older, you're teaching them to throw a ball. You know, great job, you know, throwing the ball, I can tell you've been practicing. Or they've been learning to eat without dropping everything. You know, you're going to praise them. You're doing great. Wow, you didn't spill today. This is wonderful. Or you spilled less than you did yesterday. That's still encouragement, right? We want to take it from the positive side, and most parenting should really be from that positive side. We don't want to get into the trap of becoming cynical and always looking at the negative. That's not good. That's discouraging. We want to do the other. The glass is always half full, or better, not half empty or worse. So if they did better, then we're going to praise them for it. We're going to use our verbal words to help that. And certainly if it comes unanticipated, it's even better. Well, actually, all three of you, I think, have been through toilet training, right? With your little ones, right? Wasn't that using a lot of encouragement? You have to be. If you use the negative, it doesn't work so well. How many of you use the potty training in a day? You use that? Yeah, it's one day of lots of drinks and candy and encouragement. So they can learn what? Basic skills, which you're now going to build on until it becomes habit for them. That's what we're talking about. So that's skills. So S1 is skills, S2 is verbal praise. So we'll do that. And then link verbal praise with touch, especially with little ones. That is important. You know, we talk about doing the toddler, training them in first-time obedience by they're learning to walk and call them by name, and they come running, and you give them a big hug and say, great, you know, you're wonderful, look how well you're walking, and you know, we're going to do that. And then you keep stretching it till they're coming from the other room, other side of the house. Well, you're going to give them a hug when they do that too. Well, that touch, especially in the younger ages, means a lot. So be free with the hugs, or rub their shoulders, or you know, rub their head. And if they're a boy and you butch them, you can't do anything but rub their head. It's just you like to play with their heads. It helps with the encouragement, so they can go together. Now S3 there is goal incentives. Goal incentives. So we've got verbal praise, and now we're going to have something tangible, or could be intangible, but it's an action that's going to reinforce the skills you're working, or it's going to give an incentive to work on a skill. And again, these are associated with non-moral behavior. They motivate action associated with non-moral behavior. Tangible, intangible, it could be an item, and it could be a special trip to some place to use it. And you try and put those together. For example, when my boys were learning guitar, they had my guitar. And the goal was, is as they would learn, if they could reach a certain skill level, I would buy them their own guitar. Now, of course, the guitar was fairly cheap when they got their first guitar. It wasn't a real expensive one. But as they progressed, I gave them an incentive. Is if you can learn this to this level, and that level for the next guitar was going to be when you're up to the point where you actually can start joining in and playing for church with one of the teams, we're going to get you a good guitar. And so that became an incentive. They wanted to do something. It could be they're learning to throw a ball. You know, you're going to get your own balls for this. You're a new mitt or something like that. I don't know what, I don't have had girls, so I can't think about what you do to encourage girls, so I don't know. New dance shoes? I don't know.
Stickers.
More stickers? Well, yeah, more stickers right now for doing. Well, you know, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Here's one, a goal incentive we use for training them to do their chores. So we put a chart up, and as they would do their chores, they get a sticker for doing a good job on it. And if they did a good job for so long, then we would take them someplace for a special reward. It could be, you know, get a small pizza, or to, you know, get a hamburger or something, or get an ice cream cone or something, or a trip to the park. Something to reward them. This is, we can see that you're developing in these areas of skills. So actually, that's a very good one, Phil. Sticker charts. You use that a lot in teaching, right? It's the same kind of thing. So use that with your children. But that means you're thinking ahead of what I want to develop in them, because let's face it, keeping your room clean is a skill. Okay? The moral component only comes in whether they refuse to do it when you've told them to do it. That's a moral issue. But keeping the skills are things you're going to train them in. So you want to do something to make it fun, exciting. Barney was on when our kids were little. I think the purple dinosaur is still out there, right? You don't know? Barney's no longer there. Barney had this song of clean up, everybody do your part. And so the toys are out, and it's time to put it. We'd say, well, okay, let's all clean up. And we'd sing the song, and we all help. They learned to put it in. So even as a little one, they got their building blocks out, you know, and they put it in. Yay, you got the verbal praise, encouragement, skill incentives, try and keep on the positive side as they're developing skills that are necessary just for part of life. Okay? So you got to keep that in mind. Now, goal incentives used to motivate behavior are not goal incentives. Those are bribes. That's a blank there. And why are bribes wrong? Well, Scripture speaks against it. In law, it blinds the discerning and perverts the word of the righteous. But more importantly, probably Ecclesiastes 7:7, pride corrupts the heart. Related to that is you're appealing to the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, which we're warned about by a bribe. Okay? A bribe is related to behavior. If you do this, you will get this. That's bribing them, as opposed to a skill, where it's not moral, it's if you can accomplish and learn to develop these skills, then there's a reward for you. Make the reward related to whatever it is they're doing. Okay? That really helps it along and keeps them moving toward that skill. Okay, any questions about that?
S3 was?
S3 is goal incentives.
Okay.
Goal
And
incentives.
B above that was?
B is linked with touch.
Thank you.
Okay? So you can see for the goal incentive, it's pretty simple there, right? There's no correction, punishment, and skills. It's all encouragement. You're moving forward. Behavior's a different matter. Now we're going to use a lot of encouragement for behavior, but there's also correction and consequences. So let's talk about B1 is behavior. And for this, we're defining behavior as actions that proceed from the heart, from what's internal. Now, discipline is a process of training and learning that fosters moral development. The word traces from the Latin root, discipulus, which our disciple, one who's a learner. The Greek word paideia refers specifically to the education, cultivation of a child, the upbringing, bringing them to maturity. Since the principal function of discipline is to teach morally responsible behavior, that is righteousness, biblical discipline achieves that end more successfully than permissive or authoritarian parenting styles. The positive aspects of biblical parenting are synonymous with education and growth in that they emphasize inner growth, personal responsibility, and self-control. All of these qualities lead to behavior motivated from within the child's heart. So what we're trying to do is develop them to be their behaviors internally generated, not an outward force upon them. So, but that's a long-term goal. There has to be an outward force until it becomes internalized. But we as parents must keep in mind where we're going with this. Remember, the goal is you've got little ones now. The oldest is 3.5, right? So where do you want them to be in 15 years? Right now, I know you're just trying to, like, can I survive this month? But where do you want to be them in 15 years? What do you want them to be like when they're 18? When they're moving out of the house? That's how we're parenting, with the goal in mind of training a responsible adult. So the things I'm training them now are all geared toward that kind of responsibility, that kind of self-control. And yes, it does start when they're crawling. You're teaching them self-control, to pay attention, to be obedient to the rules that are there for your family, to be respectful, to be thoughtful. Okay? Too often, as that next paragraph says, the parents tend to think that discipline is controlling actions immediate. And again, that's true, but only partially so. Discipline is a long-term goal. Okay, B, parents motivate heart behavior by encouraging their children and by correcting their children. So it's both, encouraging and correction. Both are important. The encouragement side is the instruction and what we call pre-activity reminders and questions to stimulate good behaviors, things that happen before behavior will occur. And the best time to teach is in periods of non-conflict. That's why we encourage you as when they're learning to walk, do the basic skill of first-time obedience. There's no conflict here. You make a game out of it. Come to mommy, come to daddy, and make a big deal of it. They come, yay, you made it. It's teaching them to come when you call. It's teaching them to respond and add in, say yes ma'am, yes sir, whatever you want. But some kind of verbal acknowledgement, I've heard you. Add that in there, and it's encouragement. There's no conflict there. Now, conflict is going to create other opportunities for training, but try to train before you get to the conflict. So there's already an understanding of what's required before conflict occurs. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, so like what an example would be like yesterday, it just popped in my mind. He, like I was playing with Raymond and Joe stuff, and then, you know, he went on my back, but the way that he had turned, as we were playing, he like hit me in the nose, but the way it went hurt so bad. So like, you know, I'm moaning, I'm like, oh, but then he starts laughing. And I'm like, but I don't know if he thought I was just joking, but I'm like, no, Raymond, it really hurt. Like I was checking to make sure there wasn't any blood. That's how hard it was. And then now he's laughing, looks at Joe, now they're both laughing. And I had to explain to him, like, no, that's not kind. So I had to teach him. So I put him in timeout because he wouldn't stop. He just kept laughing and didn't understand that you have to console because I was hurt. So then after, I don't know, was I supposed to, I did like a model. I did a role play. I said, okay, so Mom is going to do that again. Ready? So I went, and said, and I told him, and then you're supposed to come to me and say, Mommy, are you okay? And you hug and you kiss me. So I said, all right, let's try. So I went, you know, and then he came up, Mommy, are you okay? And I kind of ignored him because I was still hurt. And then he like looked at me and he's, Mommy, are you okay? And he hugged and kissed me. He's like, I hope you feel better. And then but then after that, I said, that's what you do. We have to show love and care for it. But is that kind of like this? Like, that was a behavior that was wrong. You don't laugh when someone gets hurt. And then you teach it, and then you just do it. And then hopefully he does it again. But if not, I would do that over.
Yeah.
And then
you do
by
it
then
over.
he should learn you don't laugh when someone gets hurt.
Yeah, because it's, and then you would teach him as he gets older, why? Because it's cruel.
Yeah,
You know, as he gets older, you'd be able to say, so why are you laughing?
yeah,
This hurt Mommy. You know, you don't know what he thought was so funny.
yeah.
And of course, Joe's laughing because brother's laughing. He doesn't even know what's going on.
It's a new thing now. They just laugh and look at each other and do that.
Yeah,
It's another stage.
that brings back memories.
Okay.
Even
How
in my
long's the
childhood.
last? Okay. The last
So,
one.
but that's an excellent example because, okay, you see here's a behavior and something I want to work on. So create something which is not conflict and role play it out, and here's what I would like you to do. Here's the proper response, and you're teaching the moral reason why. We want to be compassionate to people. This is how you show compassion. If they're hurt, find out if they're okay, maybe there's something you can do. So that's excellent.
Right, so it's
That's exactly what, so there was a conflict that came up, but now in a period of non-conflict, you train them what actually is expected and how to behave properly. That's very good.
okay.
Excellent example. We want to be more on the encouragement. B2 there is encouragement, both there and on your chart. B2 is encouragement. Again, instruction begins all training, and proper encouragement is the positive side of discipline, and it is the motivator for right behavior. So E1 is pre-activity. So by its nature, it's before something happens. It's before the activity, before behavior would happen. So you're anticipating what's going to happen. So you're going to instruct before the activity. You're going to encourage them to do right. So E2 is, first is pre-activity, E2, verbal reminders. So this is more as they're younger or they're learning some new behavior, a reminder. How do we behave when? So you're going to go, going to the park.
Yeah, I was going to
Okay.
give you an example from yesterday.
Okay.
We're at the park in the sandbox, and I bought new sand toys, put them in, but I didn't explain ahead of time. So now I see Joe taking the shovel, but he's going out of the sandbox. So I'm like, no, we have to keep him in the sandbox. And Raymond was taking the sand and wanted to pour it out into the grass. No, we keep the sand and the toys in the sandbox. But now what I should have done is before I put the toys in the sandbox, I said, okay, here we are. I'm
Yeah.
going to take the toys out. I'm going to put them in the sandbox. But remember, before we play, let's go over the rules on playing in the sandbox.
That's exactly
And then
it.
I should have said, we keep the sand inside, the toys stay in, and all that rules.
So,
Okay.
actually, excellent example, because first is, you don't necessarily know what they're going to do.
It was the first time in there.
So your first time is like, and you found, oh, I'm going to have to do more instruction here than I thought.
Yeah.
Let's face it, we assume they may know more than they do.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, they don't know what to do with it. So that tells us, okay, we have to instruct. So we're going to instruct. Now the next time you're going to go do the same thing, you instruct again as a pre-activity encouragement by a verbal reminder. We're going to go play in the sandbox. I want you to do about the, this. When you use this toy, play with it this way, this toy, etc. And you're gonna do that for a while until you know they understand what the instructions are, okay? Now, once you know that they understand, you don't necessarily want to keep doing the verbal reminders. Because let's face it, that becomes discouraging after a while if someone's always telling you what to do and you know what to do, right? That gets to us as adults. Like, yeah, I do know that. So instead of doing that, we switch to the next one. It's called dialogue questions. So they know what to do in the sandbox now. You've done it long enough, you can see them play. But now you want to make sure they comprehend it, and it's a way to remind them without being belittling to them. Always telling them, you got to do this, you got to do this. So it's like, well, we're going to play in the sandbox. So how do we play in the sandbox? Get some general things. Well, how do we play with specific toys? Okay, why? And then now you can start asking, well, why would we not put the sand outside the sandbox? You can start increasing their understanding of the reasons for the behavior as well. So that's these dialogue questions. So the goal is of this form of encouragement to get your children to tell you what is required. Okay? We're going to go over to a friend's house. How do you treat the other children that are there? How will you treat, they're going to get older. They're going to a friend's house and they're going to have lunch there. So now I can go over, meal behavior. So when they're first doing it, you're going to give them verbal reminders. This is what I require of you. As they develop those abilities and they understand it, now we're start asking them, what do we do when we get there? How are you going to treat Mrs. So-and-so? How are we going to treat Mrs. Jordan? You're over at their house when she makes the lunch for you. So what do you say? So you're going to prompt them, but they start learning, oh, I'm going to say thank you. Just like you did with, if someone's hurt and moaning, what do you say? It's teaching them. But notice all this is really on the positive side. They're not being corrected or admonished. They're not being punished. It's all about here's what's expected, here's what's required, here's how to do it. Here's a reminder of what's required, and here's these dialogue questions to make sure you understand. And now you're adding in the moral reasons behind what you're expecting in their behavior. So, dialogue questions. E4 there is positive words. And this is learning how to give your instruction in the most positive way possible. Use positive words to encourage and not negative words to restrain. And there's some examples here. A, instead of don't spill your cereal on the way to the table, how about let's see how carefully you can carry your bowl of cereal to the table. And then when they got there without spilling, then what it would be? Good job, you're doing so much better. See, that's very positive. Rather than always being the negative is, don't spill it, you spilled it, now you're in trouble. They don't have those skills yet. They're not being, they got their childish, they don't have that ability. You're helping them and you want a behavior that goes with their abilities. So try to be on the positive side. Another one.
I just want to say, that's one thing I remember with my parents or anything, is just, I know when you do the positive words, it makes it do it as you do it to, not out of the fear anymore, you do it because it's the right thing to do. I find when Monique, even too, when we do it in a negative way, it's out of just fear that she doesn't want to do it. And when we do positive, she does it nice and it's a lot better. And then I notice next time, she does it on her own almost without us even saying anything.
That's exactly why we wanted you to do it this way. Because eventually you're transferring this whole idea to their idea of what does it mean to obey God. I'm not obeying him because I'm fear of he's going to crush me. He's not the, cosmic organ in the sky is just waiting to crush me. He's a good God. He loves us. And the things that he wants us to do are for our benefit. So I want to teach from the very early on as positive as possible. Let's see what we can do. Another one, B. Instead of don't get out of bed, how about obey daddy, stay in bed? Okay, that's a little more positive. Now if they keep getting out, that's going to be a different problem. Okay, then we'll get into consequences. But remember, at this point, we're still on the encouragement side, and we want to be encouraging. C, instead of don't hit your sister or brother, Consider saying, you need to show kindness to your sister or brother and treat her kindly. So that's more on the positive of what you actually are looking for anyways. It's not just a negation of a bad behavior. You want a positive behavior, and kindness is much more than just refraining from hitting. Okay? It includes it, but let's be kind to your brother. Let's be kind to your sister. D, instead of don't talk so much, how about something like, let's work on our skills of being a good listener. Okay? Let's see how long you can sit there and not talk, instead listen, and then when I'm done, I'm going to ask you what I said. That's positive. That's developing a skill you want anyways. So it's not just refraining bad behavior. You really want to encourage the good behavior. That's where we want to be as parents. But admittedly, there's certain periods where it seems like all you're doing is correcting. Well, some of our mindset gets that way too, and we forget to be positive because we're so busy correcting all the time. We're looking for the bad thing they did. Well, let's look for some good things they could do, should do, and encourage them toward that. So parenting discipline really should be more positive than negative. The vast majority of it should be positive because that's also part of the instruction, continuing the instruction, reminding them the instruction, seeing if they understand it, and then encourage them as they're able to do it.
It makes you reflect when you have that bad week, that you think it's such a bad week, and it's like you went backwards. It's almost like, wow, wait, I have to reflect and evaluate myself because now I'm looking at all the bad stuff instead of being reminded to use more positive because you're considering it a bad week because they're abnormal behaviors that maybe.
Because you have to focus on the bad things they did rather than what did they do right. Okay? Now, all those things are before the activity. All right? That stuff we're doing beforehand. But what about after? You've done whatever activity. E5 is post-activity. We're going to look for encouragement after that has been done to encourage what they have done right. That's basically reinforcing this lesson. You're like, well, don't talk so much. We're not going to do that. It's like, let's see how well you can listen. And they did sit there and they did listen. So you want to encourage that. So the first is going to be verbal affirmation, E6. So it's a necessary positive message. Tell them what they did right. You did a wonderful job. I saw how you treated your sister, your brother, and you were very kind. I'm very happy with you. I'm very pleased with you. Those are things that will help. So verbal affirmation, good effort, I'm happy how well you did. E7 is rewards. Rewards are used to motivate behavior, not stimulate behavior. There's an important distinction here. Okay, a reward will confirm and reinforce a behavior. B is the example here. Rewards are because you were good in the store today, not if you will be good in the store today. Notice one is post, the other was pre. Okay, so, and it's not something that's done a lot, it's occasional. It should be something that comes as a surprise. You went to the store and actually had very good behavior. And, they like a certain candy bar or something, and just spontaneously, you buy it, and when you get out to the car, you say, you know what, I want to give this to you because you were so good today, and I'm very pleased with your behavior. Now, if you did it all the time, what's going to be expected? They get to the car, and then you're going to have a screaming fit. Where's my candy? I was good in the store. I didn't get my candy. No, that's basically you've done it so long they expect the bribe. Okay? You never want to do it in the sense of, we're going to go here. If you will do this, then I will do this for you if you will behave well.
What about, this is an example, like Stop and Shop. You go there often if you have to pick up, 3 things or a big trip. And they know us there. They always have, but every kid has every register has a thing of those Dum Dum Pops. And so they know.
Oh, they know.
Get it. They have to ask her in the line, but then before they get there, and it's our turn, they have to first, obviously they know they have to be good throughout the store if they get it. So there's times where we've gone and they've said, "Oh, here you go." "Oh no, we don't get any today," and then they know. But what about that? Because it's almost like, "Oh, we're gonna get our lollipop today," and it's like, remember, when we're in the grocery store, and I do say, if you are a good listener and you help mommy with the groceries and we sit in the car, then when we get to the register, you can ask her nicely, may I
That's a
please have a
bribe.
lollipop? It is,
Because you did it beforehand.
but what if it's because you're, I know, but it's like almost like, but he knows that when he goes, we get one every time, unless it's those really bad times when we're
Okay, you have a
there.
really
It's
bad
like,
time, but a very simple way to do that, because it's
That's how he gets it.
becoming a tacit bribe. It's done so often, right? So it could be, it's because the store's doing this, because the store's trying to bribe your kids. Let's face it, that's what they're
oh,
doing.
totally, in the beginning, yeah,
And if I was a store, I would do the same thing. I'm trying to keep my store intact from brats running around. So, that's a business decision.
But you know what's weird is they only do it when you're in the line, you're about to leave. Now you're in the car. There's no lollipops in the car, so they know. They hold onto the wrapper. When we get in the car, they put it on top. They hold it, and then I drive home. And then when they get home, they you know, it's like
So they're gonna wait. So there's several ways to handle that. Number one, they're doing it at the register just from the business standpoint, because the checkers don't wanna hear these screaming kids. I want that, I want that, and it's just nasty. So they're bribing your kids. Okay, so first of all, recognize, the store is bribing your children to have decent behavior in the checkout line.
That's something I don't know.
That's exactly what that is, okay? So, what are you gonna do about it? Well, it could be is, no, they were not good today, they're not getting it. Okay, you didn't see what they did earlier. So that's telling the checker, sorry.
Yeah, and that's
And
happening.
also reminding your child, no. The others, okay, let's say they were good and they're expecting it. Okay, you're not gonna be rude to the store. And if they offer it, you say, well, that's very kind of you. So, you know what, I will put this in my purse, and we'll consider about giving it to you later for something else. So when they forgot about it, okay, when they're no longer thinking about it, you know, they did something else, goes, oh, you know what? I still have that lollipop from, you know, the store, where you actually did have good behavior. I was really glad about that. And look at, now you're doing this really well too. I think I should give you the lollipop now. You just disassociated it with the bribe. You see the big difference?
But if she didn't tell them beforehand and they were good, then is it okay to give it to them?
If it's after and you want to reward them, that's fine.
Because Raymond now, when we like, you know, I put him in the car, we're walking in, ooh, that's where we get lollipops today. Like he just knows, but they don't get it unless they're good. But it is, I guess it is a
So
bribe
what
because
is
there's
it?
times
Because it's
when
beforehand.
it is beforehand.
It's beforehand.
Because he
They
remembers,
know.
he associates
So
it.
here's the issue. The issue is they're trying to be good in order to get this
Yeah.
reward. You're bribing them for the behavior. I don't want my behavior based on that kind of idea. I want my behavior generated from an internal heart of desiring to do good.
Yeah, you're at the store, you should
Okay.
always listen regardless whether you get it or not.
Mhm.
But it's only this store, and we go to a whole bunch. But it's always just this one. They don't get it when we go to all the million other stores, you know?
Well, you can
I
also,
don't like those
okay, this
lollipops.
one says, you know what? I'm keeping the lollipop because what this reflects is I'm training you well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mommy's getting the reward today.
I mean, you know? Yeah.
They won't like that one. No.
I mean, well, but like I said, like when we get to the line, and sometimes like they had one tiff or in the aisle, and then we get to the line, they ask, and I say, oh no, not today, and like they don't cry or pout. I mean, sometimes they do, but sometimes it's just like, oh, like they just know, like man,
Okay.
like you
In
know,
that case, you're still using it
as a
as a
bribe.
correction.
Yeah, but
Because they recognize what's going on. That's a correction. You were expecting this, it's not happening.
yeah,
You didn't meet the standard. The issue here I want you to keep in mind is bribes occur for behavior with an agreement. If I am going to have good behavior, you're going to give me this.
yeah.
Okay, that's bribing.
Not I should do it because it's the right thing to do. I should always listen.
I should
to
do
the
it
store.
because I love mommy.
Yeah.
I should do it because I love God and I want to be kind to other people. See, the heart motives get all twisted around there. Whereas if it's a reward, it's occurring after without any expectation of just as like, I am just so pleased with you. Okay? And all that is trying to encourage this continued behavior. I'm just very pleased with you, and this is a tangible way to do it. It doesn't have to be a lollipop or something. It could be, as you know what, we're busy today, but let's stop by the park for a little while. You both boys you've been doing so well. Let's just stop by the park and play for a little bit. And it'd be the same thing. It's a reward for what you see as they're doing well. But it becomes something, it should not be, if it once becomes something that's always expected, it's a tacit bribe. That's what you're experiencing at the store. but use that as a means for yourself. Okay, you're going to use it as a correction. They weren't good. You're not getting it. And also is, you know what? Today we're not going to take it. They were very good, but we don't need it today. That's another one. Just saying is don't expect that you get something every time just because you're good.
Yeah.
Now you could do something later on if they've been good the rest of the day and say, you know what? I didn't let you have a lollipop earlier, but you've been good all day, and I really appreciate it. So therefore, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, because sometimes I'll say things throughout the day like, well, you know what, Raymond, sometimes Mommy says yes, and sometimes Mommy says no, and right now it's no. And so, like, I heard him say that one time, and I'm like, oh, wow. So I kind of use that a lot, because I use that in the classroom, and so that's why I'm like, sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. Well, why? Well, because today I said no. Not today, whatever it is. So I could say that when I could
Because
just
today I
change
was
that
thinking about
language.
the dentist,
Okay.
which actually is
Use
part
that.
of life too, you know, it's like, nah, you don't need the extra calories, no, it's gonna ruin your lunch, no.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of reasons, but also, it also can be is being gracious to the clerk, because, you know, let's face it, they're trying to bribe your kids to be good, your kids were good, they want you to take their lollipop. So it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna put it in my purse and we'll see if I can maybe give it to you later.
Yeah, because then at the point we'd get to like we're like waiting in line behind people, and now it's like we're the third person, and he's like lollipop, and I'm like, whoa, I'm like Raymond, that's rude. First of all, you don't say that when we're 3 people behind. I said the woman, it's not even our turn. So then I had trained him now when it's our turn, because he's like, can I say it now? No, because she's still paying. Do you see? We're not even up yet.
Wow, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so-
a bribe.
Yep, I totally, yeah. So
Okay.
that was a new behavior. I'm like, lollipop? Now I know.
All right,
Okay.
so,
I fixed that.
rewards because you were, past tense, not if you will be.
Yeah.
Don't put it into a bribe,
I have a
okay?
question. So then what about the incentives like with the guitar? So how is that different?
That's very different, because that's a
Yeah.
skill, there's not a moral
Oh.
behavioral difference.
Oh, okay.
We're not dealing with a moral behavior, we're dealing with a skill set of being able to do something physically.
Oh.
Yeah. And you
No.
pair the reward with
With-
the skill.
Oh,
Like, you know, it goes hand in hand. Where this is,
They said,
Candy.
they're learning to swim, okay, you know, they wanted to get a, you know, face mask and fins or something, you know. If you learn to swim, then we'll get you this gear,
So you could do the if then when it's skilled,
skills,
Okay.
skills and talents.
but not.
Because that's an incentive toward, and again, try and tie that directly into whatever skill you're trying them to learn, you want them to gain, because that's an incentive as well to keep pushing toward it. Hence, the guitar, oh, you get good at this, I'm gonna make sure you get a good guitar. Okay? Because I wanna encourage that, and I wanna encourage not just that skill, but all that goes with that skill. So for us, it was, when you're able to play on a musical team, that's a skill, but it's a behavior I want with the skill. I want you praising God with it.
so it's
So-
a behavior, but it's a skill. So like when you were just saying, like when you do this, you will get this, but based on a skill, not like when you sit in this chair and use the fork nicely, then you'll get dessert. That's wrong. That's more of like
No,
a,
that's not quite what we're
right. It's
talking
more
about.
of this. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, because it's still a skill with using utensils. So if you can use utensil correctly, I'm gonna give you something that requires you to use that utensil.
Yeah. So it's how you word it.
So, well, it's how you word it, what you're trying to do with it. It's one thing if the behavior would be is, I'm taking my fork and grabbing my spoon and going, fling! Okay, that's a bad behavior.
Right.
The skill is being able to hold it properly, and okay, if you're really doing it, you got your spoon and you twist around and it's
I get it.
fine etiquette. You know, more to that point is, we're gonna teach you etiquette skills. Let's say they're now 5, 6 years old. They can handle utensils, they got basic skills. And they know that you and Darren go out once in a while, and you go to a nice restaurant. And you won't take them there because they can't handle that, right? You learn these skills, you're going to go to this nice fancy restaurant with us, because you can handle the utensils. You see the big difference? That's what you have to always keep in mind. Rewards for skills is related to the skill to encourage development of that skill. If we're talking about moral behavior, I may give a reward once in a while just to encourage them in continuing, or to let them know I'm really happy with how they're behaving. But it's sporadic, it's once in a while, and it's never if-then. If-then is only related to skill development, and the then is going to be related to that skill. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Potty training, since you've all just been through that in more recent times, is a wonderful example of that. That's skill development. Okay? Now later on, as they're developing that skill, there's a behavior now that starts becoming with it. They need to let you know. Okay? There's behavior with that. So you're going to be doing all these things toward the skill set they now have for the behavior that goes with it. Does that make sense?
So like how practically? Because like
Very
Monique's
practical.
been doing that where she has been like reverting a little and going in advance.
Okay, so you have a day, you've been working on this, it's a skill set, so, but there's a behavior now, she needs to let you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're still working on it, you're encouraging her, okay, because you're gonna be pre-activity. Now you can remind her, remember, when you feel that urge that you need to go potty, you need to let mommy know so I can get you where there is one. Or ask her, you know, as she develops her verbal skills. Okay, Monique, what do you do when you feel like you've got to go potty? Oh, I tell you, mommy. Okay. Okay, do you remember what to do to use the potty? Okay, so you're reinforcing a skill already developed, right? Now you can use words of encouragement there. She went all day and did it right. And so you did so. That's praise. Or let's say she went a week, did it, say, you know, you've done so well, I'm going to give you a special treat. You know, something that means she's going to have to use the potty. So you're developing skills on top of it. But so see the difference between these things. And I recognize in the moment it's sometimes hard to keep that clear. The clarity comes skills versus behavior. Behavior is a moral component. The skills are the ability. Skills, ability, behavior has the moral component. They slop over each other, but I'm trying to encourage, okay? And again, rewards can be tangible. It could be as simple as a lollipop or a pack of gum, or it could be just a hug. It could be the trip to the park I mentioned. D, children should be rewarded for obedience, but not obedient for a reward. That's the difference. Reward them for obedience, but they're not being obedient for the reward. When it slops to that, it's become a bribe. And E, beware of the condition of reward dependency. And this becomes the overused rewards, hence what you found in the market. It's overused, they're dependent upon it. It becomes worse when it's okay, if they're not getting it, now they're throwing a tantrum. Like, whoa, what happened here? Okay, obviously then you got a problem. Do not condition your child for the reward. It defaults, it's an unstated bribe. All right, let's take 5 minutes, grab something to drink or eat, a little more coffee if you need it.
Yeah, I just wanted, I need to turn by, but ask something, because I think, since it's pre-activity,